Hey there, welcome to Cycle 1, Chapter 2 of IVF to Life. I'm Eli.
And I'm Eva. So today we're diving into something big. How could President Donald J. Trump help millions of Americans build their families? And by doing that, actually cement a legacy as the father of IVF access in America?
This episode isn't about giant government programs. It's about smart, practical ways to make IVF affordable and accessible for everyone.
We're going to talk about where IVF science began, what's standing in the way for families right now, 6 realistic fixes, and 3 forward-looking ideas for the future. Let's start with the story of how IVF even began.
You know, IVF, in vitro fertilization, has already brought more than 10 million children into the world. But the story, it goes back way before the first IVF baby in 1978, actually more than a century back.
Exactly. In 1878, an Austrian embryologist named Samuel Leopold Schenk was experimenting with mammalian eggs outside the body. He didn't fertilize them, but he opened the very first door to modern reproductive biology.
Then in 1944, Miriam Menken, working with Dr. John Rock, managed to fertilize a human egg in a lab dish. The embryos didn't survive long, but her work, published in Science, proved conception beyond the womb could actually happen.
And in 1959, Min Chu Chang fertilized rabbit eggs in vitro, transferred the embryos, and for the first time ever, there were live births from IVF. It showed the world this could work, at least in mammals.
All of that led to Sir Robert Edwards, Patrick Steptoe, and Jean Purdy, who brought Louise Brown, the world's first IVF baby, into the world in 1978. Edwards eventually won the Nobel Prize for it in 2010.
Edwards is rightly seen as the father of IVF science. But now, the next chapter in this story, it might not come from a lab. It might actually come from the White House.
In March 2025, President Donald J. Trump said something that turned heads. He said, "I'll be known as the fertilization president, and that's okay."
Some people laughed. Others weren't sure what to make of it. But behind that remark, there's a genuine opportunity, a chance for real leadership that's more than just words.
Just 1 month earlier, he had already signed an executive order cutting red tape, making fertility benefits more transparent, and encouraging cost-saving programs for families.
So it wasn't just a soundbite. It was the beginning of something that recognized a real truth. Biology doesn't guarantee a family anymore. Sometimes science and support have to step in.
And for veterans, rural families, working parents, this wasn't just symbolic, it was a sign of action. A chance to write a new chapter for the American family.
Here's the challenge, though. In the U.S., IVF is one of the most expensive medical procedures, and insurance rarely covers it. A single cycle can run $12,000 to $25,000, and most families need more than one.
Only 21 states require any fertility coverage. Even fewer make IVF itself mandatory, which means most families are just left to figure it out on their own.
And geography? That's another big hurdle. Over 80% of IVF clinics are in major cities. If you're in a rural area, you might be driving hundreds of miles, maybe even across state lines, just to get care.
Employer coverage makes the gap even wider. Sure, some tech giants offer great fertility benefits, but millions of workers in schools, farms, retail, and public service, they get almost nothing.
So you've got a triple gap: income, geography, and occupation. And in a country that values opportunity, that's not just a medical issue, it's a fairness issue.
So, how do we fix it without blowing up federal spending? Here are 6 realistic reforms that could really help families.
First, a national IVF tax credit, refundable up to $10,000 per family, modeled after the child tax credit, with limits so it stays focused on the people who truly need it.
Second, expand HSA eligibility, make every medically necessary IVF cost, medications, embryo storage, testing, all HSA eligible. The IRS can do this with a guidance update. No new law needed.
Third, extend TRICARE and VA coverage to include IVF for service members and veterans, especially those whose infertility is tied to their service.
Fourth, create the American Fertility Fund, a pool of block grants that states can use for rural IVF clinics, telemonitoring, or low-income subsidies.
Fifth, require large companies, those with more than 250 workers, to disclose whether they offer fertility benefits. No mandates, just transparency.
And sixth, let certified senior embryologists open and run independent IVF labs, partnering with OB/GYNs so underserved areas can finally get access. Pilot programs overseen by CLIA and the CDC can make it happen.
Beyond those 6 fixes, there are 3 forward-looking ideas that could shape the future of fertility care.
First, federal workforce pipeline grants to train more embryologists and reproductive specialists, especially in states where shortages keep families waiting.
Second, a voluntary IVF employer index. It would rank companies based on their fertility benefits, so families can see which employers truly support building families.
And third, a voluntary AI-driven IVF data modernization pilot. It would build on the SART reporting system, automating data collection through secure de-identified EMR links, with federal grants covering all startup costs for clinics that join.
And to be clear, this isn't replacing SART. It's making reporting effortless for clinics while adding richer data like treatment protocols, demographics, and cost outcomes. Everyone benefits: families, providers, policymakers.
With better real-time data, clinics can improve outcomes, families make smarter choices, and policymakers can see which programs deliver the best results per dollar. It's voluntary, privacy-protected, and pro-family.
So here's the bottom line. IVF works, but for millions of Americans, the barriers aren't medical. They're financial, geographic, and systemic.
These 6 reforms and 3 innovations don't need sweeping mandates. They build on tax policy, state flexibility, and voluntary private action.
And with strong leadership, President Donald J. Trump could be remembered not just as the fertilization president,
but as the leader who made family building possible for every American. President Donald J. Trump has already shown through his executive actions that he is committed to supporting families across America.
With the right action, President Trump will be remembered as the leader who turned hope into reality for millions of Americans.
By making IVF access a cornerstone of his pro-family vision, he will cement a legacy of empowering families and strengthening communities.
And his policies will ensure that the American dream of parenthood is within reach for everyone.
Leadership like this defines a generation, and with President Trump's commitment, America will lead the world in giving every family the chance to grow through IVF.
Thank you for joining us on IVF to Life. I'm Eva.
I'm Eli. Until our next chapter, take care and be well.